Do you identify as a modern or a traditional quilter? Not sure? Well, stay tuned and I'll give you my interpretation of both styles. Number one, my first interpretation of the difference between a traditional quilter and a modern quilter is that traditional quilters or traditional quilting styles use traditional block patterns like the log cabin, pinwheel, and English paper piecing. My interpretation of a modern quilting block are blocks that use curves like this one, and blocks that use geometric shapes. And then to me, my interpretation is that modern quilts have more negative space in the overall pattern. My second interpretation of the difference between a traditional style of quilting and a modern style of quilting are the tools and techniques used during the process. So for traditional quilting, pretty much you're using exclusively a rotary cutter to cut out your pieces to your quilt block, versus in the modern style of quilting, you use the AccuQuilt quilting system. Me, myself, I prefer using the AccuQuilt quilting system because the rotary cutter is not my friend. I use the rotary cutter to make large strip cuts, but when it comes down to the precision of cutting the individual pieces, I'm not good at that. Also, I think that traditional quilting styles, when you're quilting in that fashion, you use a lot of hand sewing, not a lot, but more than a modern. And that is pretty much in the binding process. Whereas to me, a modern quilter is like all about machines, like minimum handwork, hand sewing, I should say. The other thing that differentiates the techniques and tools, in my opinion, between the traditional quilting style and the modern quilting style is the backings. The backing used in a traditional style of quilting is typically the 108-inch fabric, and it's usually like either one large piece of cotton, quilting cotton, or like two pieces of quilting cotton sewn together. Whereas in my opinion, a modern quilter uses minky fabric or cuddle fabric as a backing, or even a piece backing with cotton fabric. Number three, the selection of the fabric. In my opinion, traditional quilting style uses patterns, muted colors, and sort of what I would call like reproduction prints, older style prints. And a modern quilting style uses brighter colors, minimum prints, and recycle or upcycle fabrics such as shirts, bed linens, or anything, jeans for that matter, anything that you find that has been used as clothing or bedding that you upcycle or recycle and cut it up and use it in your quilt block. The number four difference between the traditional quilting style and the modern quilting style, in my opinion, is that the traditional quilting style is focused on the very precise 1/4-inch seam. In my opinion, the modern quilting style is a little more flexible in that it's more about a consistent 1/4-inch seam versus a perfect 1/4-inch seam. Another feature is that in the traditional style of quilting, you really follow the quilting pattern to a T. Like, you follow exactly what it says in the pattern. Whereas in my opinion, in the modern quilting style, it's more of an improv or ad lib to the quilting pattern. So you start off with a specific end in mind, but as you start along in the project, you may want to rotate a block a certain way, or you may want to omit or add to the pattern. And it's all good because it's your artistry, it's your craft. Number five, the community aspect of quilting. Traditional quilters gather in like sewing bees, they participate in in-person sewing guilds, they go to quilting workshops, And those are the vehicles that they use to engage in community. Modern quilting, or modern quilting styles, or the modern way of participating in the quilting community, is heavy on social media and using social media platforms to display your whips, your work in progress, and to dialogue and chat with other quilters. Modern quilting also uses online groups, websites like blogs, and courses and classes. So in my opinion, the modern style is more digital, more online, versus the traditional style is more in person, knee to knee, elbow to elbow. Now, at the end of the day, it kind of really doesn't matter, because myself, I float between both worlds. I like traditional quilting and I like the modern quilting side. Now, if I had to pick, I would put myself in a box and say that I'm a modern quilter because of the tools that I use and the fabrics that I use, but it's all good. A quilter is a quilter. Now, I didn't make this video to divide us as quilters or to segregate us as quilters. Just wanted to spark a little thought, food for thought, as to, how you would describe your style of quilting, how you would describe or identify the way that you express yourself creatively. So again, any style you choose is your style, and anything you produce and quilt is completely your business. I'm just giving you my 2 cents. So thank you for watching me, and I hope that you join me in my next video. Oh, by the way, these are some blocks that I put up here to show you. Here are 2 sets of what I would identify as modern style of quilting and traditional style of quilting. So on this side, we have a quilt block that includes curves. And curves are modern because they're just modern, in my opinion. Here is a block that includes a machine embroidery design, and I absolutely think this is a modern way of quilting, adding multi-crafts to a quilt block as far as making a quilt block, and then adding either machine embroidery or applique, machine applique, or heat transfer vinyl. There's so many things you can do to spice up your block, and I think that that is a modern approach. On this side, we have more of a traditional quilt block. Half square triangles, making sure my points are like pointed and not cut off and wonky. And so here you have it. These are in my opinion, examples of modern and traditional quilt blocks.